Hey guys, how's it going? So this is gonna be a different video than I normally do. This is just some random video I decided to make because, I just wanted something different to make this time around. But this video is more of an informative video, so I hope you guys learn something from this based on what I've learned throughout my years making videos on YouTube and that kind of stuff. So as you could probably read from the title, this video is going to be about how I write my Yandere stories and my whole thought process of making these stories. Hopefully you'll learn something here or there, because by all means, I'm not like a creative writer or anything like that. I'm not like a professional writer, or I don't even write stories in my free time, aside from these stories I make for my YouTube videos. And the only reason why I write these things is because I like concepts of stories, like themes or something I want to express based on what I've experienced into a story, more or less like that, instead of actually wanting to write a full length story. Like, don't get me wrong, I like writing stories, but like I like expressing the concepts of themes and subjects or whatever. Like, for example, the reason why I write Yandere stories is because, like, I like the psychological aspect of these Yandere characters, of why they do what they do, and how the victim would feel, and just the thriller aspect of it. It's very interesting, and just I don't know why. It's just something I like. So that's why I pretty much like writing these stories, but more or less about the psyche of the person and the victim, that kind of stuff. So basically, the way I start when I write these stories is that you have to think about a concept or something that you're interested in. Whether you can kind of base it off whether it's an anime or a manga you read, or just a real life concept, and exaggerate it if you would like to do that, or just make it as truthful to the source material as you can if you want to. Like, for example, if something happened to your friend, or if this happened to somebody you know, or if you read it somewhere and you just want to elaborate onto it based on your imagination, like, oh, I bet this happened, or I wonder how this happened, so this probably happened, or based on speculation that you think happened during those events. And you basically take that and make it into a story, basically, and that's what I do. Like, if you watch a lot of my previous Yandere stories, it's basically based on something. For example, the 7 feet tall girl named Hachi, her concept is based off a urban legend from Japan called Hachishaku-sama. I'm pretty sure you guys seen like the previous, or not I would say the previous video, or the latest video of stories, videos, or whatever that I do about the Hachishaku-sama, which is like a ghost or a yokai or whatever. So I take those concepts and I actually write a story around that concept. The concept is more of that she's a very tall girl that got outcasted, which is kind of some truth to it. The only things I did take from the Hachishaku-sama legend or urban legend is that she's very tall. And I pretty much just wrote around that concept. And that when you're making stories of this kind of stuff, then you kind of just want to write around that stuff. Just have a subject or something that you want to write about. That's how you pretty much get into writing in general. You have this cool concept and you just want to let it grow slowly with every stroke you type or whatever. I don't know. My analogies are horrible. But okay, so the way I write my stories is I know it's kind of weird because you think that stuff like this wouldn't be relevant when you're in school, but in school they taught us how to do outlines and stuff like that, which I kind of use myself, but my kind of outlines is very different because sometimes you have what's going to happen to this, and this, and this, and depending on each paragraph and stuff. But for me, it's kind of difficult for me to do that. So what I do is make outlines based on big events that might happen in the story, or life-changing events within that story. At least that's what I've been doing recently with my videos, especially with episode 11 of my recent Yandere Stories. The reason why they're so long right now or like almost half an hour long is because I put a lot of detail in each scene leading up to a certain event that will change the story dramatically. And that big dramatic scene or whatever that is going to lead up to that or whatever. I'm sorry, I'm very bad at explaining stuff. That's one of the key points within my outline that I wrote down for this whole big story arc, basically. So what I do is just like type in, or I would just type outline, like probably introduction or something. Introduction, maybe a couple spaces. Then if you're doing this episodically like I do, or parts, episodically in parts or whatever, I would just do that, use that as your point of reference, or like what you're going to start off with, like part 1, part 2, part 3, or scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, or whatever you want to do. Just pretty much do that. Then I would just leave that to the side. That's how I would start. I would just do little headlines or little headers for my parts or whatever. And then I would type a concept or synopsis or whatever of the entirety of the story, or what you want to write about. For example, let's think of something good to write. I guess something that's been done before, because I don't want to think about this too much. So what about a yandere girl? It has to be interesting, because we can't make this bland. We can't make this a bland story where it ends too quickly, or she doesn't have a reason to be like this. Maybe she's like mentally ill due to some stuff that happened to her past, or something like that, depending if you're using a boy or girl as your main protagonist of the story, or I don't know, however you want to write it. So let's say the concept of this is that she's the yandere girl is a vampire or something. She's a vampire that was saved by a knight a long time ago in her past. She wakes up 100 years later only to discover that the knight she fell in love with is gone. But she realizes that his descendant is alive. So basically, because she was saved by this knight a long time ago, she has a motive or something that will, make her want to pursue this person because of love, because she loved that knight for a long time, and she couldn't wait to see him again. But knowing that he's gone, I guess because this descendant of his is alive and looks just like the knight that she fell in love with, she basically her love for that person still continues within a different person. But she realizes that his descendant is alive. So she decides to pursue him in modern society. And she's basically you have to think about what the age of the character is going to be, whether she's going to look young or old, or how economically it affects them, because sometimes, a lot of the times, economics does affect the story a lot, because they could be rich or poor, or they could not be able to do stuff because they're crippled or something like that. So you have to take into account what kind of character you want to make, for these kind of stories, because if the person or if the yandere girl is crippled or something, she can't move. It makes for an interesting story, but you have to like make walk rounds for that, because it's very hard to write for a character that can't really do a lot of physical actions. So you're gonna have to write basically on psychological action or whatever. So because she's a vampire, she can't really die. So you can put a lot of accidents that might trick the viewer or the person reading the story or whatever, however media you're going to use this, and to put them at the edge of their seats, thinking that this happened, but in reality that didn't happen because she's immortal and she can't die, and all that kind of stuff. So, like, you could use that as a stepping stone or something that for a key point in the story, you know. Or you can have it so it ends like that in part 1 or something like that. So let's go back to this concept that I just made real quick. So she decides to pursue him in modern society. Okay, so the way I introduce my yandere girls or whatever is usually it's from the perspective of the protagonist of the story, or from the victim's view, because the victim is going to be mentally narrating the whole thing because he's going through this experience, and you have no idea what the girl or the attacker or whatever is thinking, which makes it more interesting because she's unpredictable, and this victim doesn't know who she is or her background story. So you have like room to put extra filling in the story, to make it more interesting, because that's the point of stories. You know, you slowly learn who this person is and why she's going after you and all that kind of stuff. So usually when I introduce a new story or something, I do it from the perspective of the victim because they're the one being chased after, right? At least that's what I think. So as an introduction, you have to pick a certain location. Okay, it can't be some just like, oh, I'm just going to do this in school or something like that. It has to be a specific place, depending on like location, region based or something, because depending on the region and location you choose, whether it's out in the country or like Japan or America or in Europe or something, it will affect how the story plays, because the culture, you're going to have to know a lot about the culture, unless this is like a fantasy based thing. So, which if you are writing a fantasy story, you know, you can make up the rules of whatever land you're making, but if your concept is based on reality, you kind of have to have the idea of where you want your character to take, or these events to take place in, you know. So let's say this takes place in, I'm not gonna make it Twilight, so we're because that takes in America. We're gonna make this based in Japan, because you know I'm a filthy weeb, so you know it has to be Japanese, right? Okay, so let's say one of the key points for introduction, I would say like MC. I'm just gonna call the person or the main protagonist just MC because you know I can't think of a name right now. So the MC goes day to day with his life, not caring much. I guess we can make him a normal person, so he doesn't. I don't know. It's very iffy because you also have to think about how the MC is, depending on his personality, whether you want to make him like a hesitant person, like a shy person, or maybe like a outgoing, popular person or something like that. I don't know. Maybe he's a introvert or extrovert. I don't know. Depending on how your character or your protagonist is, they react differently based on how they are. So let's say, because this is very uncommon, usually MCs aren't very extroverted, but let's say this person is extroverted and they have a social thing going on, because if we make him a social person, he's going to have, or the vampire girl is going to have a lot more rivals and that she has to deal with in order to get to the main character. So let's say the MC just entered high school. because usually that's when a lot of Japanese students have social interactions is during lunch or between periods or something. So usually the main focus when it comes to interaction between these characters would be lunch, for at least for in this case. So part one, what's one of the major key points we want to for this part or episode to have? Each part you can have you can make each part into an episode. So like the introduction and the part one is going to be one episode or one video or whatever. At least that's how it is for me. So let's say in part one, the MC runs into her, realizes that she's a foreign transfer student. This is probably a run-on sentences, but it's whatever. You don't have to have perfect grammar or whatever. As long as you got your concept or your idea written out, you should be good. So, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's at least I have the idea out on paper or whatever. I don't know, whatever you're using. So let's see. She runs into, realizes the foreign student, and so he helps her out and shows her around school. They slowly got to know where each other are from. I'm not very good with writing stories and like last minute kind of thing, so this is probably pretty bad, but so this is pretty much how it is. Actually, you know what would be very good though, if she falls on purpose, so he can go and reach her and catch her, and that's her chance to kiss him. So let's see. And let's make this a more fantasy based story. So if she kisses him, he basically I guess starts to become a vampire or something like that. I don't know. It's like transferable or something. I don't know. Let's just say that she falls on top of him and they blush. Or no, she falls on top of him and she kisses him. And that's the end of that part one. So basically in part one, the MC runs into the foreign transfer student during lunch or something like that. And they slowly got to know each other by talking about where they're coming from or what their hobbies are or why she transferred to the school. And you slowly get to see what kind of character she is and slowly, build up this character as well as set up some key points in the future. And as they finish up, or as he finishes up like a little mini tour of the school, they walk down the stairs. She suddenly trips. He tries to catch her. She falls on top of him and she kisses him purposely. But the person who's reading or watching this video does not realize that it was on purpose. Because you're going to write it in a way that's going to be like, oh, suddenly they kissed or something like that. And then he starts slowly feigning and stuff like that. And that's a good place to stop the story at. Like, it sounds very short, but once you start having a concept out on paper or something like that, you kind of want to build on top of it because you want to add all these intricate parts and interactions between these two characters in particular. And basically you just keep doing that with part 1, 2, 3, and 4 until you finish the whole story, or how you want to finish the whole story to finish. You start as you keep doing this, you kind of get ideas along the way, and you start thinking, oh, I bet I can do this, make a plot twist or something if I do this with this and connect that with that. And this is how kind of you make very intricate stories. And at least in this method of mine, this is what I do to make my Yandere stories. I don't know, I might be just crazy and don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know, but this is pretty much it. I know a lot of people have been asking for Yandere Stories, episode 11, part 4, or whatever. As you can tell based on what I've just said, it's a lot of work, because the details in between these key parts or key moments within the story is very hard to write for. So I hope one day I can get more people on board and help me out with this kind of stuff, so it'd be easier on me, so I can get these videos out more. But it's very unlikely. But I hope you guys enjoy this video, and hopefully you learned something, or I don't know, or take something from this. If not, you know, hope it's entertaining. If you did learn something, you let me know in the comment section of what I can do to improve this concept of how I'm making my outlines and stuff like that. Otherwise, yeah, I hope you guys have a great weekend, and see you in the next video. Peace.